Stephen Brunt on Writer's Block with Jeff Blair has been working through all of this like the rest of us. Stephen has been kind enough to join us live from Dunedin, where the Jays did play a game today, and we will get to that. The Jays are actually having a pretty good spring. I will gladly focus on that, Stephen, momentarily, believe me. But it wouldn't feel right today, considering that you agreed to come on, without getting someone who we love and respect like yourself, just to kind of walk us through where you're at, considering some of the news that has come down today.
Well, hey, I'm flying blind like everybody else here, to be honest. We are in uncharted territory, and I think everybody is struggling to understand what the appropriate response is. But in terms of sports, in the tiny little world where we reside, and I think you now have seen the path. I think the path has become pretty clear, which is, it began with canceling events where people were going to come in from all parts of the globe, like the World Figure Skating Championships or the Women's World Hockey Tournament. But I think the idea of games being played in arenas, empty arenas and empty stadiums, I think that's what we're going to see this spring across the board. I think that's what you're going to see in all professional sports in North America. It's a solution to a degree. It means the games go on, the business of the games goes on. It would be terrible for the people who make their livings in those arenas, because I'm not sure anybody's going to come to their rescue. But rather than canceling everything outright, my guess is that this is the next step, and that the dominoes are going to tumble pretty quickly. It's been look, today a lot of stuff has happened just over the course of the last few hours. But, look, I'd be shocked, if a week from now we're not talking about all of the major sports going that route, empty stadiums, empty arenas, and honestly, with who knows, how do you decide, how do you declare it safe? How do you know what the end point is? I don't think there's anybody, the World Health Organization or anybody, who could tell you right now exactly when that will be.
Yeah, the tricky part about this is there's certainly a fiscal side of it, because these are businesses, but also there's a risk management side. The Warriors had a sign up at the arena last night saying you're entering the building at your own risk. I'm not sure that would play in a court of law, but how much of this is just making sure from a league and team standpoint that they cover their bases if there's eventually some legal action?
Yeah, maybe, Donovan. Yeah, they may be thinking about liability, but it is a public health crisis, right? Like, it's legit. It's not. And it is across the board, and they're going to have to follow the guidance of health officials and politicians to a degree. And again, I know there have been mixed messages coming out, especially politically, especially in the country where I'm standing right now. It's been a little hard to understand sometimes what the message is coming from those in power. But look, I think when you are told this is a public health crisis, and you are told by those in authority that mass gatherings are dangerous, or that at least preventing mass gatherings is a way to, as they say, flatten out the curve of the coronavirus, then I think you have a moral obligation to respond to that.
Stephen Brunt here on Tim and Sid, live from Dunedin at Jays spring training. A lot of focus around basketball and hockey is happening here. We are a little over 2 weeks away from a league that plays more games than anyone else in Major League Baseball. The Jays season opener is 2 weeks tomorrow. What are the Jays saying right now, Stephen? What's the feel around camp with Mark Shapiro and everyone? What's the word?
Well, they're kind of waiting for direction. Mark Shapiro was in on that conference call yesterday, was it, I believe, which then led to the joint statement from all four leagues about what their plan was. They're being briefed on a daily basis, if not more, about what MLB's plans are, but again, it's a moving target here. It really is. So they're awaiting direction. They've enforced the clubhouses are closed to the media. That's no big deal, by the way. Little inconvenience, but it makes a lot of sense. They're trying to, but I was in a stadium with 5,000 people today. There was a mass gathering to watch the Jays play a Grapefruit League game. Does that change before the end of spring training? Are those exhibition games in Montreal that close out the Grapefruit League, are they going to be played? And is the home opener going to be played in an empty stadium? Look, I can guarantee you there is nobody in the Jays organization right now who can tell you definitively that, one way or another, but certainly definitively that they're going to be, it's full speed ahead, business as usual, off we go into a baseball season. I don't think they can do that, or they would do that.
March Madness was a big one for me because it was really hard to justify having all those people travel and be in venues together.
They had to do that.
They had to do
it.
The next one, other than Euro, that you really see that being the same thing, is the Olympics. The IOC isn't governed by a specific country or county.
They're governed by money.
Yeah. Correct. They're going to have to start to make some decisions pretty soon. How do you see that conversation going?
God knows. You heard a member of the Japanese Olympic Committee yesterday suggest that it could be pushed back by a year or by 2 years, and then the head of the Japanese Olympic Committee stepped in and said, "No, we're not talking about that at all." Obviously there are financial considerations here. There are political considerations here. There's all kinds of stuff involved in that. But again, it's. Dick Pound said originally, didn't he, that he thought they would have to make a call by May as to whether they would go ahead in July with the Olympic Games, that was the timeline. Can you imagine that we are in a position in May where anybody can say definitively, it's all fine, it's all clear, go ahead, have the people of the world, the athletes of the world, and all of the fans converge in Japan, which has been a hotspot, to watch the Olympic Games? I hope we get an all clear by May, and everybody says it's fine. I just have a hard time imagining that now.
Stephen, another piece of news here just came across, and you'd be interested in this. So I'll throw it out to you and Donnovan and the audience. News out of Italy tonight that a central defender for Juventus, a 25-year-old named Daniele Rugani, who's represented Italy 7 times, has tested positive for coronavirus. Now, no one expects Serie A in Italy to start anytime soon, obviously, with what's going on in that country. Sports have been banned. Everything's been banned, basically, for the next month. But Juventus do have a Champions League game with Lyon that was scheduled for next week. UEFA's under intense pressure to somehow figure a way around these fixtures. Roma could even fly into Spain today for a game against Sevilla tomorrow. But this, to me, Stephen, this is the next thing. If you have athletes who now test positive and are in contact with all their teammates and athletic trainers and coaches and family, the quarantine alone, if that happens here in North America, all of this talk of playing behind closed doors is going to be moot.
You're correct. Yeah, no, Sid, you're right, and that is the next step, and that's why we may be talking about an intermediate step here in terms of the empty arenas and people crossing their fingers and hoping. But the next question would be, what if? What if a team official? What if an athlete is test positive? You can't go on then. You can't. That team will not be able to play. It's going to spiral, and the end result may be here that we do have a shutdown, that we do have a full shutdown. I think maybe it's naive for people to hope that if we, and the larger risk is the mass gathering and the community spread of this disease by thousands of people being close to each other. But if we could also, we can't sit here and say it's not going to creep in. Athletes aren't going to get it. Somebody in northern Italy right now is in one of the world's, the number one hotspot in the world. It's not shocking that somebody who was in Turin might test positive for coronavirus. It's right near the epicenter.
Last one on this before we transition to the Jays. Sid made the point earlier in the show that some of these leagues have some insurance against losing some gate revenue because their TV contracts are very rich, and if games are played, they'll still make money that way. A league that depends on the gate, and that's very close to both of our hearts, is the CFL. And they've got a combine coming up at the end of the month. Training camps will start shortly thereafter, and then the league starts in the summer. If they have to either play in front of no fans or postpone games, what would that mean to that league?
Yeah, well, you're right. The gate means more to them than to anybody, to any other league we can talk about, really. And Donnovan, it's not just a combine. Remember, it's an international combine now. You're talking about bringing players in from Europe, in theory, from Japan, from Brazil, where they just had a combine. That whole idea of the CFL 2.0. I can't imagine that will happen. But look, if we get to June and this is still raging, we're probably in a pretty different world, and that may be the least of the things we're talking about.